What's up guys, it's Cybot here. Today we're going to take a look at the ASol Rework a little bit more in depth, so we get a better understanding of it and we can do some analyses on how he's going to do. His passive is the Cosmic Creator, where when you damage people, they break down into stacks of Stardust, which improves his abilities permanently. So that means he's very focused on scaling, could be sort of going the Rod of Ages way, depending on his scalings and his base damage. Breath of Light is his Q, where he channels his Dragon Breath for a few seconds, damaging the first enemy hit and splashing reduced damage onto nearby enemies. Each second the breath is channeled directly at an enemy, it will deal bonus damage, which is improved by the amount of Stardust that has been collected. So this ability collects Stardust if the target is a champion. This is decent, I think. You're gonna be able to burst one person down, but you're still doing area damage. So I think there's still a lot to do with positioning in teamfights. So it's not like you're losing that kite ability. I guess you can't do it while using Q, but you still have to use E and Q together, or W and Q together. So I think that's decent. And then we have the Astral Flight, the W. It's his old E, but he can cast his E and Q in the middle of his flight. His Q doesn't have a cooldown or a max channel duration and increases in damage when he's flying. So if you can do this right, I think it can be very, very powerful in teamfights. And maybe you can even flank. I guess that would make sense then if you go Rod of Ages, so you're a bit tankier. And then you can flank people. And also, Rylai's would still be decent if you're using a breath that does continuous damage, so they will be permanently slowed, kind of like how he is now. The cooldown of his W is reduced whenever an enemy champion dies after being recently damaged by him, which is also, I guess they needed another reset ability in this game, as if there aren't enough. So I guess you could pair this with Transcendence, so you get pretty quickly reduced your W again. And the Stardust increases the flight maximum range. So early game he can't do insane roams, but I think depending on how long the range is by default, he'll still be able to roam pretty well, or at least not the global roam, but probably you can do like a Cane E where you go behind them and such. Yeah, I think it would be pretty good with your W into an E flanking the bot lane or something. Or you can also help your jungler a lot. Then there's Singularity, which is the E. That is the... If you've played Overwatch, if you've played Valorant, you know the character called Astra. It's kind of like her pulling ability, where people get pulled into the middle, but in this case it also does damage, and then it puts them towards the center while still dealing damage. But although it's pretty slow, so most people can probably get out of it by simply walking or using a dash. It grants Stardust, the passive, each time an enemy dies within the black hole. And for each second an enemy champion is caught inside it, it also grants Stardust. The center of the black hole executes enemies who are below a certain percentage of their maximum health, which that is actually pretty strong in a team fight. Imagine you get some people who are stacked up, or you combo it with like a Seraphine ult or Orianna ult, for example. And then there's the Stardust increases the size as well as the execution threshold. So in a late game, you're gonna be an Elder Dragon pretty much with the insane execute possibly. The last ability is Falling Star, his ult. ASol crashes a star into the earth. This impact deals magic damage and stuns enemies, while also granting Stardust for each enemy hit. This is very good because if you can get a team fight, you get so much for your passive, and then you just scale so well through team fighting. So I guess you still want to really play for your team a lot. So playing for your team kind of is playing for yourself, because you get so much stronger from it. Gathering enough Stardust transforms ASol's next Falling Star into the Sky's Descent. The Sky's Descent is ASol drags a giant star down from the heavens with an increased impact zone and increased damage, knocking up enemies rather than stunning them. A shockwave then spreads from the edge of the impact zone, which damages and slows the enemy's hit. Stardust increases the impact area of both Falling Star and the Sky's Descent. So wait, is it a recast? What I'm curious about is whether it's the initial ult that needs to get enough Stardust so that it goes to the Sky's Descent, or you have a certain amount of Stardust overall that decides when your ult will become the Sky's Descent. Probably the latter, but we don't really know yet. But it's actually so good for team fighting as well. Like he's still gonna be such a good team fighter, and you're gonna keep scaling and scaling. I think he's gonna be pretty fucking strong if you can survive the laning phase. And we don't actually know about his wave clear yet. He does have area damage, so that's pretty good. And then his E is also an AoE damage, so we'll see how it works. But I think he's gonna be really strong from the looks of it, unless his scalings or base damage is very low at first. I mean, there's only one way to find out. Let's see. I'm gonna be playing him as soon as I can get my hands on him. So based on what we have now, I think the best options for ASol would be either you go a tankier build with Rod of Ages, Archangels, and Rylai's, since Archangels is getting changed to a shielding item, and it's gonna have more AP than bonus mana, I believe. Then you'd have the slow from Rylai's, or you could go Demonic, depending on what you're up against, and then you can go Void afterwards. I think that would be really decent on him based on what I'm reading, but it will really depend on his scalings, on his abilities. Whether does he have high base damage, and does the base damage scale with the Stardust, or does the actual AP scalings increase with the Stardust? Because if he has, a high base damage, low scalings, something like this, Leandries into Archangels, into Rylai's would possibly be better. Or if he has really high AP scalings, you would probably go something along the lines of this. However, you would be pretty squishy, so we'll have to see on the numbers. So for me personally, I think the first one I mentioned is going to be what I'm going to be building the most, solely based on what I'm reading. Can't know for sure yet. Would be cool if we can find people who make burst ASol work, though. Could be me. For boots, I think you would want to go either Sorcerer Shoes or Boots of Swiftness, or defensive boots, right? So you could probably go most of the boots. I just don't see much else than Sorcerer Shoes. Depending on his actual ranges for things, Boots of Swiftness could be an option for kiting between abilities, but we'll see on that. And now the question some of you might have for me is, can you play it in the top lane? I don't know. Maybe. I don't think he's going to be as good in the top lane. He doesn't have the increased movement speed from his W now. He doesn't have the same wave clear. It's not like he's becoming much tankier. There's no ability making him tankier, and since you don't have the movement speed, you can't really kite in the top lane. However, I will try it. I will be trying it just to see if it works. If it doesn't, I mean, it's gonna be mid lane. Pretty much just mid lane, unless you can make some crazy bot lane combo or jungle for that matter. I mean, his clear probably isn't that bad because of 2 AoE abilities, and yes, I mean, he has gank potential with his W. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. So yeah, thank you for watching and stay beautiful. Till next time.